Hi everyone, welcome to Exclusive Barbecue. My name's Chris and today I'm smoking some spare ribs on my cheapo 43cm kettle barbecue. So to start with, I made the rub. I'll display the ingredients on screen so that you can see, and I'll link to the recipe in the description. But ultimately I made the rub because it's one of my favourite ones to make in a big batch like this because it goes so well on everything. It has all the normal stuff in it like salt and pepper, garlic and onion granules. It's got paprika in there as well, but it's got some sweetness in the form of sugar, and it's got some heat as well. So it's got mustard powder, chili powder, and I used a mild chili powder in this one. But it's also got chipotle powder in it. Now, if you can't get your hands on chipotle powder, then cayenne pepper will do. So before I applied the rub, I needed to prepare the ribs, which involved two steps. The first step was cleaning up the ribs. So I cut off the smaller lumpy pieces of fat and also any larger chunks of fat that looked like they weren't going to render down or get crispy during the cook. Aside from presentation, cutting off all the fat also allows the rub to be applied to more of the meat of the ribs. So rather than the rub sitting on top of the fat and not really getting onto the meat, getting rid of that fat, getting that out of the way means that your rub's going to apply much more nicely, basically. Now the second thing I wanted to do was to remove the membrane, and if you're doing this at home you should definitely not skip this step. It seems that any rack of ribs you buy will have a membrane on the underside, and it can be tricky to take off, but if you use a butter knife to pry the edge up and then a piece of kitchen roll to hold onto the membrane, then it should come off fairly easily. As you can probably see, I had a bit of difficulty, but once that was done, I cleaned them up just a bit more before applying the rub. Upon reflection, I definitely should have used more rub. This was probably the only thing I would change about this whole cook. So in my previous video where I did beef ribs, I over salted the meat and I didn't want to make the same mistake again. But this rub is really well balanced. It's been a long time since I'd made it and I sort of forgot how nice it was, and I reckon I could have easily doubled up on the amount of rub that I used. So once that was done, I let it rest for a bit and went on to light the barbecue using this snake method. It came up to temperature fairly easily and it was about 250 degrees Fahrenheit when I put the ribs on. Now this clip is from about an hour in. The colour's looking really nice already, and a common tactic to avoid the meat drying out too quickly is to spray it. So I've just got a spray bottle with a 50-50 mix of water and apple cider vinegar, but in all honesty you can use just water or any thin savoury liquid diluted with water. So after 3 hours I brought the ribs in to wrap, and I sprinkled some sugar and drizzled some honey on the foil first and then placed the ribs meat side down. Placing the meat side down would allow me to get to the underside of the ribs easily with some more honey and sugar. So the reason for adding this now and not right at the very start was so that the sugar didn't burn. So adding it now will allow it to dissolve and to glaze over the ribs nicely as they carry on cooking in the foil. So after another 2 hours of cooking, that's 5 hours total so far, I checked to see how they were getting on. The rack itself was quite flexible, which is a good sign that they're approaching doneness. And so I unwrapped them to take a look, and you can see that the sugar and the honey, it's all caramelized really nicely. And when I poke them with a probe, it goes through the meat really easily like butter. Now, as an experiment, I added a bit more sweetness in the form of some maple syrup, and I just drizzled that over the shorter ribs. I brushed it over with a brush and wrapped that all up again before dumping it in a cool bag for about an hour. So finally I got the ribs out of the cool bag, I unwrapped them and they just looked incredible. I was really happy with them. I would say they tasted as good as they looked. However, like I mentioned before, I would definitely add more rub next time to balance out all the sweetness I added in the form of the sugar and the honey and the maple syrup. At this point, you can brush on some warm barbecue sauce and let it sit for another 10 minutes to get nice and sticky, but these didn't really need it. Like I say, I was super happy with the final product and I'll definitely be trying baby back ribs, so stay tuned for that. And if you like the video, please throw me a thumbs up and a subscribe. It would mean the world to me as I continue to make these videos. If you'd like to see more and would like me to change anything, if you've got any feedback at all, please leave me a comment. I'll respond to all of them. I've also got Instagram and Facebook links in the description where I'm really active. Thanks ever so much and take care.